Welcome everyone to another episode of Pop Rant Radio, the podcast where two pop culture junkies discuss popular and sometimes not so popular culture. My name is Moss, I'm one of your hosts, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Eric. Are you finally feeling better?
No, I'm still sick. Just a whole bunch of coughing.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, so we had to skip last week.
As am I. Or did we skip? Maybe this is that week. We're just uploading it late.
It's the future or the past.
It's future past.
Or with X-Men.
Road cut.
Or something. The road cut.
Go by the road cut.
So the big movie out right now is Captain America: Civil War.
I thought it was The Trust, starring Nicolas Cage and Elijah Wood.
Which we both saw.
Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, I have seen that.
Captain America.
Oh, no. I've seen The Trust. It's okay.
You want to tell me about it?
Nicolas Cage is a little bit toned down, which is a little bit of a bummer. Elijah Wood kills him in the end.
Spoilers.
No one's going to watch this. Don't give me that crap.
So we watched Captain America: Civil War.
Yes, we did. Captain America 3, Civil War.
Right.
I don't like that they don't put the numbers on these. Like, Iron Man's really easy. It's just Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
But, like, Thor and Captain America are just Thor the Dark World, Thor Ragnarok, Captain America the First Avenger, Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War. Like, Thor's easy. You know that Thor's first, but the Dark World and Ragnarok, like, which one's which? And then, like, Captain America, I guess, is easy.
What are you going to do when you have to alphabetize your Blu-ray on your shelf?
I just throw them in the trash. No one buys the Thor movies. What is wrong with you?
I'm certainly not buying hardly any of the Marvel movies. But
I think I own most of them.
That's a conversation for another day. All right, so we're going to talk about Civil War today. What we thought,
what we thought about, and what we are thinking about.
How we felt about it, what we thought about it, that sort of thing. So we'll just dive right into it. Overall, general impressions. We'll just do kind of like a quick thing before we dive into spoilers.
Yeah, we'll let you know when.
What'd you think?
I thought it was fine. I did leave a little bit disappointed. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And it might have been because I was still pretty sick when I saw it, so I was like half focusing on the movie, half focusing on not coughing up my lung and disrupting everyone. Because I saw it at the very first 5-star screening in town, and it was full, and like there was just super Marvel fans. Like there were people in like weird stuff. I was like, just in a t-shirt. But no,
was it a Marvel t-shirt?
It was a Marvel t-shirt, so I did fit in slightly.
Fanboy.
Shut up. I like DC. I was gonna wear a Batman v Superman shirt just to see what happens, but nope.
Oh, we mentioned it.
Damn it! But no, I left it pretty okay. Like it wasn't amazingly like groundbreaking to me, but I still enjoyed it.
Would you say Spider-Man was amazing?
I would say Spider-Man was spectacular.
Very good.
Or ultimate.
For the most part, I agree. I enjoyed the movie. I had a lot of fun in it. It's not perfect, like you said.
Yeah.
I definitely have some issues with it, and we're going to get into those in a few minutes here. But it was enjoyable. Like, I had fun watching it, and when I walked out, I was like, that was a fun romp.
Yeah. It's not insulting.
No, not even remotely close.
The Dark World.
Right, and clearly after the Dark World, and clearly after, a few months ago, Batman v Superman,
which is what I'm referring to as the Dark World.
It's like Citizen Kane in comparison.
Yes.
It's not close.
I didn't laugh as much in this one than I did in Batman v Superman, though. Granted, that was a laughing at you and not with you.
There was a lot less cringing for me in this one.
There is no scene where Captain America rips a sink off the wall and proceeds to bash it over Iron Man's head.
So for those of you who haven't seen it or are unfamiliar with the comics or haven't watched the commercials or anything, essentially Captain America Civil War, it's based off of a comic from years ago called Marvel Civil War.
Right.
And what happens is there's, through some like political maneuverings and things, basically the heroes are divided between, at least in the movie, the heroes being registered with the United Nations.
Which was kind of, I do think it's kind of funny that some people have already pointed this out, but it's like, the United Nations doesn't do anything.
Right. It's like the United Nations is the firmest hand to place our superheroes in. So the people that are the heroes that agree to be registered with the United Nations and kind of be a almost like a world police force.
They're going to hang up their capes essentially for the time being until they're called on.
Right. Their jurisdiction lies solely with the UN as opposed to just them doing things kind of willy-nilly like they did beforehand. And then on the opposite side is the heroes that feel that they shouldn't be bound by any sort of regulations like this. Not so much because they just want to kind of do their own thing, but more so that certain of the heroes don't trust that, the UN or
government.
A council of people should be responsible for where
and they still think
they're allowed to help people.
Captain America even has the line that we're still the safest hands.
Right. The whole idea is that Captain America is firmly on the side of
he's anti-registration.
Yeah, he doesn't want to register. He doesn't want to be controlled by the UN because he believes, like you said, the heroes are the safest hands that the decisions can be in. And then on the opposite side, leading the cause of registration is Tony Stark, Iron Man.
Right.
Because at least in the movie, he has come to the realization that the heroes are essentially just too dangerous to not be on some sort of leash, metaphorically.
Yeah. So we talked about this beforehand. You read some of the comic bits?
I'm familiar with the comic, but I have not read the entire thing. I know you have for the most part.
I have read the majority of the Civil War story arc.
Yeah. So
not She-Hulk.
You were talking about some kind of like major differences between the movie and the comic. And as anybody who listens to the show knows, we're big fans of adaptation. You're allowed to change things when it comes to like translating from a comic or a book to a movie, so on and so forth. But let's go ahead and just kind of establish what are some of the major things that are changed, I guess, from the movie to the comic. Does this get into spoilers?
This might get into spoilers. I was just about to say that.
Okay, so maybe we can come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Kind of a brief plot synopsis of the movie. Very beginning of the film, Captain America is leading the new Avengers, which is Scarlet Witch,
Black Widow,
and Falcon, right? And they're on a mission. During the mission, there's some collateral damage. Essentially, the villain from Winter Soldier, Crossbones, he attempts to blow himself up with a bomb vest, essentially. And in order to save Captain America, Scarlet Witch uses her powers to kind of contain the explosion and throw him away. But inadvertently, after her powers in, the explosion blows up part of a building and kills a few people.
She kind of loses control. She's trying to clearly put him up into the air where he's out of harm's way, but she doesn't get it far enough up, and it ends up hitting like an upper story of a building.
Yes. So the Avengers...
I don't know if that's spoiler or not.
That's fine. So the Avengers get called in to a meeting with General Thunderbolt Ross.
Yes.
Reappearing from the Incredible Hulk movie.
Right. Which I don't remember who made the joke, but I really wish in the trailer when he's showing the footage, I really wish they would have cut to him showing Harlem. And
the Harlem footage.
No, hold on.
Right. Because of course he's responsible for.
He's responsible.
He's basically responsible for the Abomination. Yeah, in the Incredible Hulk movie, destroying everything.
Yeah.
But essentially,
of course, he has to bring that up.
Yeah. Now he is now, I believe, the Secretary of State. I want to say Secretary of.
He's important.
He's a government somebody.
Yeah.
And he is having a meeting with the Avengers where he basically plays clips from like Age of Ultron, the Avengers, disasters, and Winter Soldier. So disasters that have happened that the Avengers ultimately thwarted, but people died in the process.
Right. A weird thing, though, that I want to know is they show New York, they show Washington, D.C. I don't know why they show Washington, D.C. Then they show Sokovia. I would have shown, I think they're in South Africa. I don't remember where, but wherever the Hulk and the Hulkbuster fight happens, that's what they should have shown. There is so much more damage in that than there is in the DC fight. But on top of that, in Age of Ultron, they try to heavily talk about, like, we caused a lot of trouble. They're going to be looking for the Hulk after this because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little weird they didn't reference the scene that clearly was trying to set this film up.
Fair. But anyway, so the basic idea is that the Avengers need to register with the government so they can be controlled, because that way, when there is collateral damage, essentially the UN can be responsible, or the UN can try to prevent as much collateral damage as possible. Captain America is against this. Iron Man is for this. Hence, the conflict of the movie happens. And there's some kind of convolutedness going on with the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, who was featured heavily in the last Captain America movie as a villain.
Territory.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like this half espionage, half like ensemble piece. And all the heroes end up fighting against each other, and there might be somebody behind this, there might not be, and that's essentially the movie.
Right.
So that's the gist of it without going too much into spoilers. So we'll clearly delineate this part, I guess, as spoiler territory.
Right. From here on out, it's a kind of listen at your own risk.
Right. So like we said, overall, for the most part, I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun in it. I think there's a lot of really great parts. Obviously, if anyone's seen the trailers, Spider-Man makes an appearance in this movie.
Yes.
Now that Sony is working together with Marvel Studios, and Marvel is allowed to use Spider-Man as a character in one of their films.
They're allowed to use their own character, finally.
So we get Tom Holland as Spider-Man, who I think does a really excellent job.
Yeah, I think that he's on par with Andrew Garfield. I really, really liked Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. That was kind of my ideal Spider-Man. I think he gets to that point a couple times. I need to see more of him, though, to be like full certain.
Sure. They do a really good job. And when you say Spider-Man, you specifically mean Spider-Man. Like, because I think Tom Holland does a really good job of portraying both Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's
with
quippy,
and without the mask on.
He's very. I love in this that he's very like out of his element.
For sure.
Like it definitely feels like a 15-year-old kid like running with the big guys.
Yeah.
For the first time and has like no clue what's going on.
Yeah, and I think for the most part the movie sets up Spider-Man pretty well. Like we were talking right before the podcast how obviously they got the ability to use Spider-Man as a character in this movie kind of during the production of the film. So it is shoehorned in, but I feel for the most part like it's fairly effective.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like if we didn't know the behind the scenes stuff, I don't feel like it would feel as shoehorned.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that now that we know, because they announced it like halfway through production, that it wasn't added until halfway through production, that it comes across as shoehorned. Because literally the scene is Scarlett Johansson and Iron Man are like, blah, 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 we gotta go bring in Steve. He's like, oh, we're gonna need help. I think I know someone. Hard cut to Queens.
Right. With the music playing, and then Peter Parker walks into the apartment. But for the most part, I think, it was fun. Which leads into...
it absolutely is. Like, there's no question about that. Like, that scene is really good, and it perfectly sets him up. It perfectly shows why he picks that side over the other. It's definitely like this very, very hard suggestion. I don't even think he knows the situation entirely.
Yeah. And I think that this movie, for the most part, very similar to what we just talked about, this movie does a really good job of kind of giving most of the characters their moments to shine.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's one thing that Civil War did very well, it's that it kind of gives us an exhibition of the characters and their personalities and their abilities. Down from starting with the opening scene where Captain America's like, hey, Scarlet Witch, just like we practice, and she uses her powers to kind of like levitate him up into the building so he can run in and kind of start fighting guys. We really get
she's like pulling the gas out.
Yeah. Or Falcon is kind of like doing his like midair parkour stuff and like blocking bullets with his wings.
The wing stuff was
was super cool.
Like him having the wing down to the ground and like using it as a shield. Like
I
was all about that.
And from what I can remember, I think this movie is the most successful with showcasing each character's abilities individually. And
how they work together.
Exactly. Really showing how each member of the team can be valuable and like what their role in the team is. I thought that was very effective, and it was, again, a lot of fun.
Right.
I'm going to say this over and over again, but I can't reiterate how much I did have a lot of fun watching this movie, even though I don't think the movie is perfect. I certainly didn't have a bad time.
Right. It's not like this is what Scarlet Witch is doing. This is what Falcon's doing. It's literally like Scarlet Witch is like, I'm going to chokehold this guy, throw him up, Falcon hits him down. There's this constant like working with each other, coordinate with each other. It was really, really good, and like that first scene really sets up like where we are from Ultron. Yeah,
it really shows that these characters are working as a unit, as a team.
Right.
Obviously, we get some returning characters. We get Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, who makes an appearance. He has a couple really good lines.
He kind of steals the show.
He does,
a big part.
In a couple spots, he really does. And that's what I really liked, is I feel like almost every character got a chance to steal the show, even if it was just for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Even like Hawkeye in this movie.
Again, from Age of Ultron, because everyone was like, Age of Ultron, Hawkeye gets a lot better.
Right.
It continues in this.
Yeah, he gets, again, he's not in it for very much, but he does a couple of really kind of cool things. You know, and again, if you've watched the trailers, you've seen this moment where like Hawkeye fires the arrow and Ant-Man is on the edge of the arrow.
You have to do that.
And just like a lot of, again, cool moments where it really showcases the team working together. I think that because the second act, which we're going to get into in a minute, is basically just one big fight scene.
Broken up for like 10 minutes and then into another decently sized fight scene.
Yep. And the fight between all of the different heroes. So you have, you know, Captain America and his guys on one side, and you have Iron Man and his people on the other side. That fight probably lasts like 15-ish minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Long, yeah.
It's longer. And it's again, it's an exhibition of all these different characters' abilities, and it's really fun. It doesn't necessarily advance the plot along,
but it does have a goal.
It does.
Like, unlike that other movie, there is a clear, definitive end goal, and that is we need to get Captain America, and at that point it's everyone, but it eventually becomes just him and Winter Soldier. We need to get them to this hangar, to that, I guess, vertibird? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like advanced jet. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get them there so they can take off, they can go forward in the plot.
Right. There's a clear goal in the fight, and the goal is not everybody kills each other.
No.
And I think that's how they can kind of get away with that fight, is that everyone's not trying to brutally murder each other. Like, they're essentially trying to, you know, one side's trying to get to this hangar with a plane, and the other side's just trying to, like, incapacitate the other members. So there's even, like, a little spot where Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting each other, and Scarlet Witch, you know, leans over to Hawkeye and is like, "You're pulling your punches." Like, they're clearly, you know, some of these people are friends and they're having to fight each other. And I think the movie does a really good job of portraying that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple people that we've never seen talk to each other, like Falcon and War Machine fighting each other. Like, never have talked a day in their life, even though they're both part of the new team of Avengers.
Yeah,
but yeah, you have all these characters, and like I said, some are interacting for the first time, which is really interesting. And there's even like a couple jokes, like when Hawkeye's fighting Black Panther, and he's like, "I don't think we met." And Black Panther's like, "I don't care." And it's like, yes, like, that's how this should be.
Yeah, everybody has a unique personality, and they're given a moment for their unique personalities to shine.
Yeah.
So I think that, kind of getting into one of our problems with the movie, you know, again, that fight is great, but like we mentioned, it doesn't really move the plot along. And I think you and I both agree that one of the biggest problems with this movie is it's kind of two different movies glued together.
Yeah, it feels like Avengers 2.5 and Captain America Winter Soldier 2.5. No, 1.5.
Whatever.
It's the second and a half Captain America movie. It was the second and a half Avengers movie.
Right. So half of this movie, or like, I would say it's like 2/3, hey, there's the Civil War aspect, like where there's the division of the superheroes, but then it's another 2/3 Winter Soldier backstory.
And Winter Soldier, like, end story kind of thing. Right.
Yeah. So it just doesn't really mesh together exactly. Like, they kind of pull it off, but it's pretty convoluted.
Yeah.
So, and again, for those of you who didn't see Winter Soldier or any of the previous movies, the Winter Soldier is Bucky Barnes, who was Captain America's sidekick in World War II.
And just his best friend.
And his best friend.
Yeah.
And he's now back in the modern day, but he was brainwashed, essentially, way back in the day.
And he was constantly frozen and then not frozen throughout time. Essentially, they brainwash him, then they freeze him, and then they take him out of the freezing. They, like, trigger him with, it's like 7 or 8 words.
Yes.
To go kill one person. Then they bring him back and they freeze him again.
Yeah. So basically, he's like this kind of trained assassin he's sent on missions, but his kind of mind control aspect is triggered when these special words are said to him in a specific order, and that's what mentally forces him to go on these missions.
Yeah, it's very much like the 1960s, like, sleeper agent kind of aspect.
Exactly. And this is central to the plot of this movie, where essentially there is a bad guy, Zemo.
Not a Baron.
Not Baron Zemo.
Also not a Nazi.
So Zemo, this the bad guy of the movie, he figures out, he gets a hold of the book that has the specific words in it, and his plan is, I'm going to draw out the Winter Soldier, who's been in hiding for a really long time,
Right.
and no one's been able to track him down. So he's going to essentially he's going to bomb the UN embassy.
Yep.
To draw out the Avengers to try to find out who did this.
Right.
Which
he's
is
going to frame Bucky for it.
And he's going to frame Bucky for the bombing. So his plan is that the Avengers will track down Bucky, which will let him find out where Bucky is.
Well, and he's also pretty confident that that's going to be the first tear.
Yes.
Is that Iron Man is going to want to bring him in. Rogers is not necessarily going to want to bring him in as much as he's going to want to talk to him.
Yes. And as we find out, again at the end, spoilers, his whole plan is to create strife between the Avengers so they essentially break up the team and destroy themselves.
Right.
That's his whole plan. And for the most part, it works.
It works on I would say it works in the most bare way.
I agree. It works in the movie.
Yeah.
But
it's just, he literally just kind of separates them.
That's what I mean. Like it works in the movie, but it's like the path to get there doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and it's convoluted.
Right, and the ending result is probably disappointing to
yes, and it relies on the idea that this guy, Zemo, can correctly predict how these 12 people are going to react to this scenario, and it just happens to all work out the way he wanted it. That part's pretty weak. And again, that's kind of the problem with the story of the movie, is that the story is kind of the path that the movie's taken to showcase these action set pieces, but the path's pretty razor thin.
It's kind of weak.
Yeah.
I would have said just cut him entirely.
I think you could have either cut him entirely and made the movie more about the Civil War, or you could have really played that aspect up more. And I think you could have still combined it, but the problem is that the movie spends a good, however much time it does in these fight scenes where people are just punching each other and the story's not moving along, that there's, a half hour or so where there's just no developments in the plot, and that's to the movie's detriment.
Yeah, and there's essentially three antagonists in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man is very admittedly considered an antagonist because it's Captain America Civil War.
Yeah, because
we're cheering for him.
For the most part, the movie's from Captain America's perspective. Like, we as the audience know the entire time that Captain America's right.
We do spend quite a bit of time with Iron Man, surprisingly so.
We do. But we as the viewer, we know, because essentially Captain America is like, hey, I know that Bucky was framed, or I know he wouldn't do this, or I know he's been brainwashed. I want to bring him in. And the government's like, no, you can't, because the accords that we've brought forth, and we have to have oversight. So we as the audience know, even though that Tony Stark has a point about the Avengers probably needing to be reined in and controlled, we as the audience know that Steve Rogers, Captain America, is correct. And so we're rooting for him because we know in the end he's right.
Right, even though it is more, I don't know. I kind of lean more towards, Iron Man's does make sense, but I do lean more towards
Steve. I think in the real world, if the Avengers really existed, there should be some
Iron
sort of
Man
sanctions.
Would be 100% correct.
But while we're watching the movie, we have the benefit of knowing. It's kind of like watching an episode of 24.
Yeah.
Where Jack Bauer is just like, I've got to do this, or I've got to stop this terrorist or torture this guy to get the bomb or whatever, and everybody else is like, you're crazy and you're breaking the law. But we as the audience know, well, even though he is breaking the law, we know he's right because we've seen the bad guy.
Right.
That sort of thing. So again, in this movie, we know Captain America is right, even though Iron Man has a really good point.
Yeah. Which is what makes it even harder to watch at times.
Yeah, and I think that part is to the film's benefit, to where we're given kind of both sides, and both sides kind of make sense.
Right.
So it's not immediately obvious, like, oh yeah, this guy's totally right.
Yeah. And then the other two antagonists are Thunderbolt Ross is clearly set up to be a big antagonist, but he's kind of underutilized in this.
He's mostly just there as an obstacle to Captain America.
Or
he's not so much
the spark that starts this whole thing off.
Yeah, he's not so much a villain as he is, like I said, an obstacle for Captain America to get around. He's in the way of what Cap is trying to do, but he's not like a villain, so to speak.
Right. Well, that's why I used the word antagonist instead of villain.
Fair enough.
And then Baron Zemo, of course, being
who is
the third one.
Villain, quote unquote.
He is the quote-unquote villain, even though he's kind of weak.
And another weak part of his whole plot is we find out later in the movie that he's the one who actually did the bombing.
Yep.
And he basically wore a Halloween Bucky mask.
Yeah, it's kind of just glossed over as he had a disguise.
Yeah, there's this really weak throwaway
Like,
line.
how would Stark not have like
Some sort of
kind
computer
better
technology
that would be
or
like, actually, that doesn't look like him.
right. So
What I actually
Zemo's-
would have, okay, so there's a big revelation in the end, which I guess we'll get to later on. But I would have just had that been a more driving point
I agree.
than Zemo. I actually thought that's what they were gonna do, and that's why when he's like, "Watch this video," I was like, "I know what the video is," because that's what I thought the whole thing was gonna be about.
Right. It's set up towards the beginning of the movie. So at the very, very beginning of the movie, we get a flashback of the Winter Soldier going on a mission
Yeah.
and shooting somebody in a car. The car goes off the road, and then Winter Soldier like retrieves some serum or whatever
he
that
gets something.
that ends up being irrelevant. It's the serum they give to the other super soldiers essentially.
Why does he have it?
Yeah, which that doesn't matter. But and again, spoilers. So at the very end of the movie, we figure out that those were actually Tony Stark's parents that the Winter
Right.
Soldier killed. Tony Stark finds out about it, and he's like, and he asks Captain America, like, "Did you know about this?"
And Cap reveals that he's known the whole time.
Right. So the emotional struggle there, and at this point, the villain has been revealed, his plot's been revealed. It's kind of like that moment in, like, very loosely, it's kind of like that moment in Seven, again, spoilers, at the very end where Brad Pitt's character figures out that, John Doe has set all this up specifically so that Brad Pitt will kill John Doe, and Morgan Freeman's like, if you kill him, he wins, and Brad Pitt does it anyway. It's kind of the same thing.
In one of the endings, he does it anyway.
Yeah, we're in the ending.
Yeah.
And Tony Stark knows, this entire thing has been set up to show me that the Winter Soldier killed my parents, but I'm gonna kill him anyway.
Yeah, because it's an emotional reaction, that's fine.
Yeah,
there's more emotion in that than Martha. That's how you set up a parent being a big part of the villain, or the big part of the plot fight scene.
But that's like the big reveal that coalesces into the final fight scene between Captain America, Iron Man, and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
But before we get to that, I know we're jumping around a lot, but Zemo's plan when he frames Bucky for the bombing, late in the movie, we figure out that so Zemo, he goes into the Avengers headquarters, or the government headquarters, disguised as the person who's supposed to interrogate Bucky when he's captured towards the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. And when he goes in that room, he uses the trigger words to wake up the mind control of Winter Soldier.
He activates an EMP at another location, which knocks everything out, and then has full reign to talk to the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so he uses those specific words. He activates the Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier kind of goes crazy, starts punching everybody, and there's a fight that breaks out. And then later on in the movie, we get this kind of throwaway line that, the guy who was actually supposed to do the interrogation is found dead in his hotel room.
And it is actually Joe Russo, I believe.
And they find prosthetics that resemble Bucky Barnes.
Yeah, and like a wig.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
It's this total 5-second throwaway line where they're like, "Oh yeah, he was disguised as Bucky and he did the bombing." It's super weak.
It's awkward.
It's
kind of
super.
Okay.
It's almost like we were kind of talking about this earlier. It's almost like they filmed the whole thing and they were like, it was kind of like a moment from Amazing Spider-Man 2, the classic van scene, where the two characters, clearly they hadn't edited the movie properly, so they just stuck two characters in a van and they just summarized the plot so it actually made sense. It was just this 10-second we didn't really explain what happened, so we have to insert this exposition. It felt really shoehorned.
It would have been a lot easier if they were just I bet Zemo did it.
Or just anything. And that's another big thing about Zemo, is that at the end, Black Panther finds Zemo, and then Zemo has this monologue about how his family was killed in Sokovia during the events of Age of Ultron.
And the Avengers stopped it, and they went home, and it was all happy and everything.
Yeah, but his family was dead. So the whole motivation is the Avengers are partially responsible for his family dying. We had the same exact scene earlier in the freaking movie. Right, that's what spurs Tony Stark to care in the first place.
Because someone comes up to him and is like, "You killed my son!"
Right, and that's what initially...
It hits him hard.
Yeah, that's what initially puts him on this emotional reaction for the Sokovia Accords, for the registration to actually happen. And that's a decent motivation for a villain of okay, his family was killed, but we don't really get any sense of that until the very, very end, and it's shoehorned.
Right, when he goes, I lived in Sokovia, and the Avengers did stuff, and my family died.
Right. It's a classic example of tell, don't
Well,
show.
it's very painful, like, exposition.
And they try to insert this small thing where he's saved the last voicemail from his wife on his phone.
Right.
And he listens to it over and over and over again, and even talks back to it.
Yeah.
But they only use it like twice, and the first time you have no idea, and the second time...
First time I thought he was talking to someone.
Yeah, the second time you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. But again, it's just really like brushed aside. Like that moment isn't given any... They don't take like a beat to kind of give that moment levity and let you identify with like,
right.
Oh...
It doesn't humanize the villain.
Yeah, he saved that last message from his wife so he can listen to her voice, over and over again and never lose her. But they don't give any time for the moment to like marinate,
right.
and for you to really feel for him.
I mean, and like I said, we were talking about this earlier, they could have easily done just a different message or just something else to like give us this idea of, okay, the message is old, he's listening to it over and over again, we just need to set up that he's from Sokovia, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Because then we can put two and two together. He's from Sokovia, he has a message playing over and over again that clearly he's emotionally connected to. That tells us that something bad happened.
Right. And I think if they would have just given us like one or maybe two more scenes like that could have really tied things together.
Right.
But again, they have so much going on in this movie with so much punching that they just really didn't get that part in there.
Yeah, and that's like when they have the big reveal, it kind of just fell short.
Yeah, it does not have a lot of weight.
Yeah. And that's why I was kind of we were talking about this beforehand, that I don't see why this is called Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
It has like one big aspect of Civil War being the registration, but then there's nothing else from the comic series. And I mean, they do sub certain things. I'm going to kind of go off here for a second, but so bear with me. There's a couple similarities. Like in Civil War comic version, there's a bunch of hothead heroes, and they're going after this villain group with one of the members being a guy named Nitro who could detonate himself. So they track Nitro, and he goes into a schoolyard and detonates, and he kills like 300 kids, and like that is the thing that sparks Civil War, which they kind of do that with Crossbones in this. I like it. It's a good like substitution. We also, because of Fox, we can't have either Wolverine or Mr. Fantastic.
Right. Marvel doesn't own all the rights to use their characters in movies, so they have to substitute some.
Right, but they do it pretty well. They sub the Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm, who are on opposite sides in the comic. They kind of sub that with Vision and Scarlet Witch, who kind of have a romantic tension in this film. And then, of course, they have to tear that apart with each other, which is, I think, pretty well done. As for Wolverine single-handedly goes after Nitro as like a personal vendetta, which is kind of translated into Black Panther, who goes after Bucky for a personal vendetta. I like these translations, but there's several other big moments that happen specifically to that I really wish would have been put more into this if this was just Civil War, and that is the introduction of the Cape Killers, which is a group of soldiers set up by Thunderbolt Ross, like his version of in the comics. It's set up by them and S.H.I.E.L.D. to go after heroes that don't register. Could have done a lot with that, and they don't do anything with that. The second thing is there's a big shifting point with a hero named Prodigy. No one cares who he is. He refuses to sign up, and he ends up getting in this fight with Iron Man, and Iron Man kills him. And that's a huge thing, because now it's, okay, if you don't register, instead of arresting you, now they're just going to kill you in the street. And it's this big, big turning point. And it's not present in this. And this was something that you and I were mentioning earlier, which makes the film feel really tame.
Right. And I think the Russo brothers specifically, the directors of this movie, they specifically said they wanted to show that a movie could have tension and could have dramatic weight without specifically killing somebody.
Right.
I do agree that having one of the major characters die, which I thought was really going to happen, definitely lends some weight to what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily had to kill somebody, but another big problem that we have with this movie that we were discussing earlier is that at the end of the day, the status quo really hasn't changed at the end of this movie.
It's slightly different, but it's not drastically different.
So in the course of the film, several of the Avengers, so Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, and Hawkeye and Falcon
Yes.
are arrested and they're put into this big like prison.
I think it's the Rake. I think it's going to be the Marvel Cinematic version of the Rake.
Sure.
Which, by the way, no explanation for that. It just shows up.
Yeah, I mean they have this giant prison built in the middle
underwater.
of the ocean. I'm actually okay with that. Like
it was just kind of weird. It was just like, here it is.
Right. I'm actually not that part doesn't bother me so much. But the point is that you get a lot of the heroes, they're put in prison.
Right.
And at the very, very end of the movie, after there's been this big, big fight between Captain America and Iron Man, and they've gone their separate ways. Oh, there was that really great moment where Iron Man's like defeated, and Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Bucky are walking away, and Iron Man's like, "That shield doesn't belong to you." And Captain America like pauses, and then he just drops the shield and he keeps walking. I like that a lot. That was cool. But anyway, at the very end, Captain America sends a letter to Iron Man, and the letter
Tony Stank.
to Tony Stank, the Stan Lee cameo shows up, and the letter basically says, "Hey, I know we fought, and I know that you were just trying to do what you thought was right, and I know that I was just trying to do what was right, but I have to go get my friends." And then at the very, very end of the movie, it's implied that Captain America goes to the prison,
now nomad,
and then breaks all of the other Avengers out. And so at the end of the movie,
and then it shows Thunderbolt calling Tony Stark to be like, "Hey, they broke out. We need your help. We have a crisis situation." And Tony Stark even like puts him on hold.
Yeah, he
so
puts him on
even
hold.
more so implies that he's like, "Nah, we're okay now, Cap."
Yeah.
Click.
So clearly the movie was kind of going for like an Empire Strikes Back type thing where it ends on kind of a down note. The team's broken apart. And I think you could have really utilized that effectively. But again, and most of the Marvel movies do this, like Age of Ultron, same idea. Like they put these seeds in of this discontent and this rivalry between Tony Stark and Captain America in Age of Ultron, and even in the original Avengers.
Right.
But it's specifically in Age of Ultron, like they go through that movie almost hating each other towards the end. And then by the end, they're like, "Oh, but it's cool. We're friends again."
Right.
And they kind of do the same thing in this movie where they set up that these characters are going to go their separate way. And at the very end, they're just like, "Yeah, but it's okay. We're just kidding."
Yeah, and we don't get that. So there's a scene in Avengers where it's after the big fight. It's after like Hulk has become Hulk and he's like gotten thrown out. It's after Thor has like Loki's escaped. Thor's gone. And like they're split up. And like there's this really downer moment where it's like Agent Coulson is dead, Thor's gone, Hulk's gone. We have no idea where Loki is. We have no idea where the Tesseract or his staff is. Hawkeye's back. Like everything's horrible, you know? And like that had more downer emotion in it than the end of this movie did.
Mm-hmm.
Should not be that way.
Yeah, and the movie spends a really long time, you know, kind of building to this moment, and then it kind of just tosses it away. I was talking before we were recording about how I really enjoyed the fact that Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, he really gets a lot of serious or dramatic time in this movie. Like he makes some quips here and there, but he's kind of on a down note because, you know, his friendship with Captain America is kind of on the rocks, and the plot has to do with his parents' death. Like he's actually given a really great opportunity to kind of put some dramatic chops on in a way that he kind of hasn't in a lot of the other Marvel movies. And again, like it builds and it builds to like this moment where these guys are going to go their separate ways, and then the last 5 minutes of the movie, you know, the movie's like, "Nah, don't worry, they're still friends.
Right.
It's okay."
I mean, there's like several good moments with him where
Right.
I think it's his best Iron Man stuff. Besides, like I said, like the 25 minutes of Iron Man 3, where like stuff like the conversation with him and Steve, where he's talking about how like, "Yeah, you know, I was Iron Man, and then I tried to give it up, but I can't. Like, I have to do this."
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, you feel the psychosis of him. He cannannot give this up.
Right,
he has to do
he's
this.
compelled to be Iron Man.
Right,
that's really interesting, and we haven't gotten that in the other movies.
It's like a really good look into who he is.
Yeah,
and then later on down the line, there's a lot of good lines with him during the final bout. Specifically, I just love the part where they're talking, and Steve's trying to calm him down, and Iron Man's like, yeah, but he killed my mom, and that's it. That's all we need.
Right.
Like, this is 100%. This isn't what is right and wrong. This is 100% a personal problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to kill this guy because he ruined my life as a young adult.
Right. And that was really good, and that was really powerful. But again, 5 minutes from the end of the movie, it's just,
we're buddies again.
But let's forget about that. It's okay.
So there's a lot of really, really good, but then there's a lot of, not even a lot of, I would just say there's small things that kind of pull it apart or kind of like drag it down.
Yeah, I think it goes from being a pretty good, it could have been a great movie. Like the writing and the acting, I mean, all the performances are so good. Like, everybody's so well cast. Yeah, like, Chadwick Boseman is Black Panther.
Nearly as much love for this.
He's awesome. I mean, everybody's just really, really good in the movie, and that's not something that we get from a lot of these Marvel movies.
He's got that fantastic line to Scarlett Johansson when he's like, "My father believed that when you die, you go to this plane and it's beautiful." He's essentially talking about like what the Wakandan idea of the afterlife is. And Scarlett Johansson's like, "Well, that's very pretty," and he's like, "Yeah, but I don't believe in that. I'm not my father."
Yeah,
and it's just like, he's like, I'm going to go and I'm going to find this guy and I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, and in a lot of these like comic book movies, these superhero movies, we don't get these little moments that really help define these characters. A lot of times these movies are just kind of overloaded with all these characters who we don't really get a sense of. And this movie, almost more than any other that I can recall, does a really good job of taking these small moments and really letting the personalities shine out of this huge cast of characters.
Which is like Age of Ultron being the last Avengers film, which is, of course, the Avengers films are supposed to be the giant casts. Age of Ultron really kind of suffers with that.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of time with Cap. We don't get a lot of time with Thor. We get a ton of time with Hawkeye, which is great, but like, we don't get that much time with anyone else.
Yeah, there's like in Age of Ultron, there's the one scene where they're all sitting around during the party. That's really good, and we kind of get some insight. But yeah, and again, Age of Ultron kind of suffered from the fact, like, well, Thor went off on his own, and Captain America was in the middle of his dream. Like, everybody was having like these fever dreams that were like, hey, by the way, we're making more movies and we have to set those up.
Which was really annoying.
And even though they're clearly planting seeds in Civil War, they're not beating us. They're not sitting down on a laptop and playing the trailers from the next 4 movies like they did in Batman v Superman. Right. I think they did a really good job of planting seeds, but not just bringing the movie to a halt to do so. They were bringing the storyline to a halt for people to punch each other.
Yeah. But
they didn't like just completely stop the movie to advertise the fact that there's going to be more movies after this. And again, we're focusing a lot on the negative aspects, which again I feel are important. I feel this movie's not perfect, and I think it could have really been great. But at the end of the day, I still had a lot of fun watching.
Oh yeah, like we could easily sit here and talk for an hour about the great stuff. The only thing is, that's what a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah.
Like, we could go in and we could tell you, we're still in spoilers, we go in and tell you how great the giant man scene is.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That looked really, really good.
That was sweet.
And I just love his like, oh, he's like, yes, it worked.
Yes.
I love that whole bit.
Yeah.
We could talk about how just a lot of the hand-to-hand combat in the beginning is really solid.
You know what? And I'm glad you brought that up. The action is really solid in this movie. I felt, especially during the first action scene, little too much shaky cam.
Yeah.
That was really prevalent. I'm not a fan of shaky cam at all. Like, there's a couple movies, like, harken back to like the Bourne movies did it well. And
the Batman trilogy did it well for the most part.
Yeah, but even like in Batman Begins, which I love, there's a lot of like quick cuts and edits, and then you get the Dark Knight, and there's a lot more long takes, and like the camera's kind of pulled back so you can see the action, which I like a lot more. Obviously, it takes more work for the makers of the movie to do those kinds of shots, whereas the quick edits are much easier to kind of cut together because you as the audience can't really see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and there's like in The Winter Soldier specifically, there's a wonderful hand-to-hand scene between Cap and Bucky under the overpass.
Yeah. The knife fight.
Yeah, I don't think any part of this movie gets to a fight that feels that much weight to it.
I agree.
Except maybe the end between Cap and Iron Man.
Sure, yeah.
But that's really about it. And that scene is kind of tough to watch because that's finally when you get that moment where the two of them are like just going hard, and I actually thought at the end of their little bout, I thought he died. Like when he like tries to fly and he grabs him and like throws him down.
Right.
The way that he lands, I thought it was gonna be like he breaks his neck and like he's gone.
And then Captain America's like taking his shield and like pounding it into Iron Man's chest, and like the helmet comes off. Yeah, and the helmet comes off, and you think like, oh man, he's just gonna hit him in the neck and kill him, and he ends up destroying the arc reactor in the middle. Like that was really cool. Like it was really intense, and again, you really got the emotional weight of that fight. That's I think the one thing this movie did a lot of things well, but another thing this movie did really well is all of the fights, you understand the stakes, you understand all the characters' abilities, you understand what each character can do, what their personality is, what their motivation is. All of the fights have dramatic weight, but they also have a coherence where you can follow along with why the characters are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And again, just not to go back to it, but just severely lacking in some of our more recent superhero movies.
Like, it's just, like, even if we go back, and even if Batman v Superman was a better movie than it was, the fight between the two of them is just, like, it's so unlikable as a fight. Like, I don't see it as, like, oh, no, they're fighting, stop. You know, I see it as, Jesus, Batman's a freaking murderer. Like, he's crazy.
Yeah.
And in this, I don't get that vibe. Even when, like, Captain America is just... Because Iron Man's Friday is the AI now.
Yeah.
Even Friday at one point is like, you're not going to beat him in a hand-to-hand.
Right.
And he's just sitting there and he's pummeling him, and Iron Man's not even trying to put up a fight at this point. And it's like, I don't get that feeling here. I don't get the feeling of, oh man, Captain America's being too harsh. I get the feeling of, yay, Captain America's winning, but at the same time, I like Iron Man, and this is kind of hard to watch.
It's a totally different vibe when you have two characters who you like both of them fighting each other,
right?
Rather than having two characters and you like neither one of them and you don't
totally unlikable.
Yeah, and you don't give a shit.
No,
because they don't have personalities and you don't know what they're capable of, and it's almost like they wrote a halfway decent screenplay,
right? Or they actually hired a writer.
Oh man,
and not David S. Goyer.
So yeah, but overall,
God, David S. Goyer's version of this would have had like Ant-Man like breaking Spider-Man's arm and then like web shooting, hanging him. And
well, we would have gotten our wish. Somebody would have died.
Yeah,
or
and
like
it would have been Spider-Man. It would have been like the kid. The kid is the one that's just immediately murdered.
There would have been only like two people alive. It would have just been like Crossbones like headshotting everyone with dual pistols and just everybody's dead.
And like Quicksilver would come back inexplicably and be like, hey, I'm back. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to keep on screwing things up. And then just dies again. Yeah.
So let's talk about the end credit scenes. So we get Winter Soldier, Bucky. He's being placed back into cryo sleep. Yeah. Because they're going to try and figure out exactly, I guess, where in his brain the brainwashing and mind control is.
He actually initiates that.
Yeah.
Like he asks, like, I'm still dangerous. You know, you got to put me...
Yeah,
put me back on.
I thought that was cool. It shows a little bit of, you know, him being like, yeah, like you said, I know I'm dangerous. I want to change. Help me try to identify like where that is in my mind and remove it.
And it's in Wakanda, which sets up a really cool possibility of a Bucky Panther like crossover.
Yeah, which again, in Wakanda, for those who don't know, is the fictional African nation that
is
Black Panther is now the king of.
Yeah, and it's like really hidden and it's super high tech.
It's essentially like Uganda. Like it's like this jungle. It's Bengala from the Phantom. Like it's the same idea. Which, side note, Black Panther Phantom movie
would be amazing.
Dude, I'm totally down for that. You can even bring back Billy Zane. I'm totally on board.
Billy Zane.
I don't care. It'll be sweet.
Can he have like adamantium or not adamantium, like a vibranium purple suit?
That would be sweet. So, total side note, not related to anything we're talking about.
Russo brothers buy the rights to the Phantom.
That would be sweet. So I was having a conversation with some friends the other night where we were arguing that all Billy Zane movies take place in the same universe.
Jesus.
And that the Billy Zane from Titanic is the father to the Billy Zane of the Phantom.
Oh no, I hate when they do that in movies. But
and then the Billy Zane, the crazy guy in the Billy Zane movie Dead Calm, about so it's like Sam Neill, Nicole Kidman, and Billy Zane's like a psycho. That's like the grandson of the Billy Zane Phantom. It was really fun. Like, it was this ridiculous
It's a
conversation.
Billy Zane fanfic.
Somebody who listens to this podcast, like, do like a supercut trailer or something for
all the Billy Zane movies.
Yeah, for the generations of Billy Zane Phantoms, and I'll send you a candy bar or something. That would be sweet.
You won't.
I might.
It would melt by the time it gets there.
Shh.
Oh, that's true.
Don't tell them.
Send them ice cream too.
Oh man. So and then obviously, yeah. Go ahead.
The second post-credit scene is Tom Holland back in Queens, and I was a little confused by it, to be honest. I thought it was kind of a wasted, because the second post-credit scene is usually supposed to be the heavier of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be the one that sets up the next movie, which, to be fair, Homecoming is coming up.
Yes, Homecoming is the next Spider-Man movie.
Which is kind of funny, because that's one of the trigger words for Winter Soldier.
I didn't even think about that.
But it's him, and he's back in Queens, and he's like, oh man, something's itchy on my arm. And like, something on the web shooters all of a sudden goes off, and it projects like a spider symbol.
Yeah, it's like a hologram, projection.
And I mean, it's clear that it's supposed to be Tony Stark's invitation for him to join them, is what I took out of it. Because then immediately after it says Spider-Man will return.
Yes. Very, very James Bond-esque.
Well, also very much like the entire first phase of the Marvel films.
Right.
Where at the end of each one it would say Iron Man will return, Thor will return.
Yes.
But kind of a bummer. I was kind of hoping, because I had heard that Tom Holland was seen on the set of Doctor Strange.
Interesting.
I was kind of maybe like a shot of him like interning at like the Bugle, like dropping off a newspaper at like the Sanctum Sanctorum or something, which is Doctor Strange's like headquarters.
Yeah.
Because then that would be a nice way to set up not only another Spider-Man film in the future, but leading into Doctor Strange, which is of course coming out later this year.
Tying everything together, the universe,
because of course he's going to somehow be in this. Because a lot of people think that the Eye of Agamemnon, I don't know what it is.
Sure.
But the
Ganon,
the amulet that he wears around his neck, the amulet around his neck is believed to possibly be an Infinity Stone, and that's how they're going to tie him into the Avengers. Is that Thanos is going to come in and murder Doctor Strange and take his Infinity Gem, and it's going to be directed by Zack Snyder and written by David S. Goyer.
I'll be honest, man. I don't think I couldn't care less about the overarching like Marvel plot.
Oh, I'm not either. I'm just looking forward to Josh Brolin as Thanos.
I think I've said this on a previous podcast. I'm just really getting tired of the superhero genre.
Yeah. That's why whenever they say things that they're like, yeah, post Phase 3, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. Like,
this is clearly leading up to the Infinity Wars. After you do Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, we're done. Like, you could keep making them, but I'm not guaranteed to see every single one of them after that.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed this movie, and obviously this movie is successful because it builds on the previous films and like the reputations and the personalities of the characters that have already been established in previous movies. And again, I enjoyed this movie, but I'm just kind of checked out on the whole like expanded universe.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried about Star Wars in the same way.
Yeah, with Rogue One, and then after that, now they've got a new Han Solo. And we're gonna be so oversaturated.
I think the oversaturation is gonna, at least for me personally, is gonna come into play really quick. I mean, I'll watch all these movies, but I'm not excited about it.
Like next year, I think we're getting 3 Marvel films, and then I think we're getting 2 DC films, and I think we're getting 2 Fox Marvel films. That's too many. That's like 5 too many.
Yeah.
Like we should be getting 1. We don't need, like, and it kind of sucks because I am looking forward to Guardians of the Galaxy, the sequel, because I think it'll be weird and I'll enjoy it. But, like, besides that, we don't need 20 superhero films a year. Especially not you, DC.
Well, we're going to get them anyway.
Like, DC needs to stop and reboot.
DC, just stop, wait 5 years.
Yeah. And then just do another Superman. Do one that doesn't openly murder. And then go, I don't kill, but you kill, so I have to stop you.
Okay, well. Oh, man. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We hope you enjoyed our talk on Marvel Civil War, or Captain America Civil War. I think it should have been called Marvel Civil
War. But I don't think we can stress enough that this is us looking for issues because not a lot of people are.
Yeah.
We both enjoyed this. This is a good movie. Go see it. I would highly recommend going and seeing it.
I would definitely recommend it.
Just, it's fun. It's lighthearted. It's very enjoyable. The two new guys are great. Like, go see this. This is good. We can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
This is not bad. I know it feels like we kind of harped on it, but we could spend an hour talking about the good stuff in it. We could do an hour of, hey, remember that time when Spider-Man said, remember that old movie, even though it's not that old, and if he's a nerd, he clearly knows Star Wars. We could talk about anything on this for an hour.
There was
great.
I saw a great T-shirt where it was Spider-Man swinging around, webbing up the legs of like an Ant-Man AT-AT walker. I enjoyed that quite a bit. But yeah,
fall on Luke's ship.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait for the second T-shirt.
Does he come up with like a lightsaber gun?
The T-shirt didn't have sequels behind it, so I'll let you know.
There needs to be an extended shirt universe with sequels planned out for the next 7 years.
I wouldn't be surprised. So again, yeah, highly recommend. I would recommend you go see this movie. All of the fun stuff far outweighs the problems that I had with the movie.
Easily. And it's a lot better than that other movie.
Yeah. So thanks for listening. As always, we hope you enjoyed it. We'd like to thank Major for the theme song.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man. We really appreciate that. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you can do so in several ways. We're on social media, Facebook and Twitter at Pop Rant Radio. You can email us at Gmail, poprantradio@gmail. And you can watch the show on YouTube. I post the episodes, just the audio, along with a couple visuals on YouTube. Those are available a couple days usually after the episode is posted.
Right.
And please, if you are listening to us on iTunes, rate the show, review the show, subscribe. The reviews especially really help. Lets other people see the show.
Yeah.
The more reviews we get at the same time, the better ratings, the more the show appears on the store. So if you would do that, we would super, super, super appreciate it. As always, the show is also available on Libsyn, the website that hosts the podcast. And I think that's pretty much it.
That was a lot.
That was a lot. We are planning on doing some other things as far as video-wise and audio-wise.
Yep.
Hopefully sometime soon coming forward, specifically on the YouTube channel. We've both been busy. Again, we apologize that we missed last week. Eric was sick.
Yep.
And we both have full-time jobs. But if the channel gets a little bit bigger, or if the podcast and the channel get a little bit bigger, we're happy to kind of devote more time and producing more content. Yeah,
we've
sure.
We've got several projects kind of in mind that we're kind of tossing back and forth.
Yeah. So if you like us, let us know, and we'll keep doing this.
Yep.
And
forever.
Forever. So let us know what you thought of Captain America Civil War or any of the movies that we talked about today, the Marvel movies in general. We're planning an episode in the future where we kind of talk the Marvel Cinematic Universe in greater detail.
Right.
Kind of going through the films.
Maybe we could do it closer to Strange.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea, actually. But again, as always, thanks for listening. And other than that, that's the show for this week.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.